Shabbat Shalom, everybody. This is Rabbi Stephen, Rob Shmuel, with you this week with this week's 10-minute Torah. So, first of all, we have, yes, the high holidays are right around the corner. This weekend, we're going to be having Selichot, 7:30, 8 o'clock. I believe it's 8 o'clock p.m. Saturday evening. Remember, Selichot is Leil Shabbat. That's not Leil Shabbat, I'm sorry, Motzi Shabbat. Leil Shabbat is the evening of Shabbat. Motzi Shabbat is when the Sabbath is leaving. And that's when we do Selichot. Selichot means basically, pardon me, excuse me, I'm sorry. And it starts the high holiday season. Now, actually, the high holiday season started a few weeks ago with the beginning of Elul when we start reciting Psalm 27 and we start blowing the shofar after each day's Shachrit service, morning service. And Selichot really kicks it off. So we have Selichot this weekend, and yes, the following weekend, Labor Day, Monday, is going to be Rosh Hashanah, beginning of the year. And we're very excited. We're going to, at this point, we're still going to be live and on Zoom. We have heard nothing about having to close or any other restrictions. I believe there will be some precautions like masks, things like that. But otherwise, we are going to be starting the high holidays. Also, a shout out to Lila Weinstein, a good work. We called her up as a maftir this weekend. No, she has not had her bat mitzvah yet. That's coming up in a few months. But one thing I read in the Shulchan Aruch, is that if you have a b'nai mitzvot in training 3 months prior, you can actually count them in the synagogue under certain circumstances, and you can call them up for the maftir. Now, the maftir is not technically an aliyah. Remember, on Shabbat we have 7 aliyot. We have 3 Saturday afternoon, Monday, and Thursday on those Torah services. And yes, there are Torah services during the week. There are the 3 aliyot. When there's a new month, a new moon, then we have 4 because we have the extra one for the full moon. 5 aliyot on the festivals in Rosh Hashanah, and 6 for Yom Kippur, and 7 for Shabbat. So the maftir, same word, same root as the word haftarah, which means, I understand it to mean dessert. Some people say, well, it's afterwards, but basically, it's just that little portion, those 3 or 4 verses at the end of the portion. Sometimes it's special. That leads into the reading of the haftarah. So it's kind of to get these young people acclimated, accustomed, and also, to create the habit of now we're going to Saturday morning services. Okay, enough of that. Ki Tavo. Last week's portion was Tithes, when you go out, like when you go out for war, and we talked about situations that happen. Then this is Tavo, when you come in, when you come into the land. And of course, they talk about the tithes and the tithe. It's kind of a tough word, kind of between your tongue, right? Tongue and the teeth. But tithe, of course, is the tenth, and there's the offering that goes to the Kohanim, and then you got offerings that go to the Levites, and the third year, each third year, it's the widow, the orphan, and the righteous stranger that don't have their own means. So there's that, and then we have the Tochaha, the warning. So think of the flow that we've had. First, at the beginning of Deuteronomy, Moses is addressing the troops, preparing them to take and settle the promised land. And, first we talk about Moses' experiences and how you're a stiff-necked people, and you got to watch it, and you got to be real careful, and you really have to, adhere to these commandments. I don't like the word obey. If you notice, I avoid obey the commandments. Judaism is so much more than obeying commandments. When you do the command, when you perform the mitzvah, that's probably the best word. Perform, because it's action. It's not obey. It's not blind obedience, because, we rabbis, we're constantly discussing these things. What does this mean? What does this mean? What is this application, right? Me, as you can tell, if you've been listening to my 10-minute Torah for any length of time, you know that my big thing is context and flow with the Torah. So Moses is telling people, you perform the mitzvah, you go in, don't forget, you're going to be prosperous. God's going to watch over you. He's going to give you some prosperity. don't think, oh, I'm really great, pat yourself on the back and and you forget and you start, dismissing the commandments one at a time. Maybe the little ones first and then the big ones, and it's a slippery slope. So Moses tells them, continue to perform the commandments. We reviewed the Shema, the Ahavta, the second paragraph of the Shema. We went into a whole laundry list of mitzvot and commandments that are specific. I mean, they're all specific to our life, but these ones are very appropriate to when they take the land. About leaving the land fallow every seventh year, about giving a part of your produce, your production, for the poor and the needy, and the ministers, the Kohanim and the Levites, the priests and the ministers that take care of the temple, because you need to be tied. You need to have that relationship, with Torah. And now it's come to the point where Moses is really kind of laying down the law. Now we've seen the Tochaha before. We saw it in Leviticus, I want to say, but now it's a little bit more extensive. And the Tochaha, the warning, we first have blessings. Some of those blessings, by the way, some of the verbiage is part of our liturgy. Now, let's go back a little bit because this is very important. This is very appropriate. When you bring the first fruits to the priests and the Levites, there is a formula, kind of a prayer that you say. My father was, worked for a wandering Aramean, was a wandering Aramean, and et cetera, et cetera. You may recognize this from the Haggadah, and it's a reference to Jacob. And basically, according to the Art Scroll Chumash, it's kind of a synopsis of the history of our people. We were, we went to Egypt and we were oppressed, and then we were here. We've been able to settle the land. Okay, and with that, again, we've got that responsibility of adhering, of performing the mitzvah. Now, here's the warning. Here's the Tochaha. The Tochaha has about 14 verses that talk about blessings. Bless you when you come in, bless when you go out, bless you in the city, bless you in the field. And this is actually part of the Mariv, the weekday Mariv service. It's also, at the end of Sabbath, of Shabbat, when we do the Sabbath conclusion. See? So we have about 14 verses of blessings, because blessings a lot of times are taken for granted. This chapter has about 64 verses in it. Guess what all the verses after those first 14 or 15 are about? That's right, a series of warnings. Now, interestingly enough, okay, we've talked about when, when the men go out to war, those over 20, and the battle priest will sit there and address the troops before they're going and say, okay, who's betrothed the woman and has not had a year of marriage? Who's built a new house? Who's planted a new field? Right? In the Tochaha, those are reversed. And the reason they're reversed is because when you're going to get married, what do you do first? You make sure you can afford a family, right? You go off, you build a house so they have some place to live, you get a field, or you get flocks so they have a way to make a living, and then you start a family, right? But here it says, you will betroth a woman and not marry her. You will plant a field and not enjoy the produce. You will build a house and somebody else will come and take it from you. So it gets real serious. And we need all that warnings because remember, at the beginning of Deuteronomy, Moses said, you are a stiff-necked people. You don't get it. We had the 10 plagues. The sea opened up, the Sea of Reeds opened up so you could march through. You saw it swallow the Egyptians and kill them. And what do? Instead of you dance on the shore, but then what do? You say thank you. You say, wow, this is great, a new adventure. We can be free. No. You're like, where's our water? Then it's like, where's our food? It's like, what if somebody else attacks us? It's just one thing after another. And Moses is telling him, now this is the next generation. So he's saying, this is what your folks did. Yeah, they had a slave mentality, but be careful. Don't fall into the trap. Don't bite the hand that feeds you. Because if you do, it will be a world of hurt. And I know when we say world of hurt, people think, oh, that's an interesting expression. This is beyond an expression. It will really be a world of hurt because you'll be forced out of your land. You will be in foreign lands. You'll be forced to pay tribute to other religions, other idols. People won't respect you. It'll be a disaster, right? And unfortunately, in the modern age, we've seen some of that already. That's why. That's why you have rabbis in Israel that are so fastidious about the laws, about obeying Shabbat, about saying if you're not a traditional Jew, you're not a Jew. I mean, they are just so I know that we look at this and saying who these people think they are, but in a way, in their minds, this is what they're trying to avoid. We have a land, we want the Messiah to come. In order for that to happen, we really have to have that strong relationship with God, and that means performing the mitzvah. And by the way, that means being Shomer Shabbat. I'll leave you with that. I'm looking forward to being with you in the high holidays. Any questions, anything, let me know. Okay, Shabbat Shalom early.